Hi everybody. So today what I'm going to do is show you how to make a graph using Microsoft Word. So what I have in front of me is some data that I obtained doing a lab. And what I want to graph, I actually want to make a double plot graph comparing weight to static friction and weight to kinetic friction. So the first thing I want to do is I want to insert a graph. So I'm going to go to my insert menu and then I'm going to select chart. And the type of chart that I want to select is a line chart. And I'm just going to pick this first one here and say OK. And it will bring up a spreadsheet for me and it will generate a pre-done chart. So what I want to do is take out the data that's listed there and put the data that I have. So I'm first going to select it and then I'm just going to hit my delete key and delete all of that value that I do not need. And then I am going to title my three columns that I need: weight, and then I'm going to call this one static and this one kinetic. You can call them obviously whatever you like. I'm then going to go back to my Word document and copy what I already have in my chart. You notice that I'm ignoring the mass. That's because I don't need it. And then I just paste that value in. Once I've done that, I don't need this chart anymore, so I'm just going to get rid of it. Okay. And now I'm just going to focus on my graph. Now, first of all, those lines look pretty straight, but they're actually not. It's kind of hard to tell. So the first thing that I want to do is I actually want to change the type of graph that I've got. So I'm going to click on that line. And I'm going to double click on it, and it's going to bring up a new menu to deal with the type of chart. And the first thing I want to do is I want to change my chart type. And I want to change it to one where I don't have those pre-done lines. So I'm going to change it to this one, which is a scatter, and I'm just going to pick the first one without the pre-done lines. I'm going to hit OK, and that changes my chart to this. Now you'll notice at the bottom that I have a legend. I can keep that legend there if I want, or if I go to chart element, I can move that legend over to the right. And I'm going to do that for now. Just move it to the right to get it out of the way. And then I'll come back and work with it in a little bit. Okay. Now, the next thing that I need to do is I need to label my axes. You know, all graphs have to have axes that are labeled. So my horizontal axis in this case is the weight. So I'm going to go up to where it says Add Chart Element, and I'm going to click on Axis Title, Primary Horizontal, and I'm going to title that Weight. And of course, I remember I have to include the unit, which is the Newton. And I'm now going to do the same thing for my vertical axis. And this one I'm going to title Force of, I think I spelled that wrong. Force of friction. And again, that's a force, so it is in newtons. Okay. Now, the next thing that I need to do is I need to give my graph a title. I can do that one of two ways. I can either go to Add Chart Element, or I can just click on the chart title. Okay, double click it, erase the title that's up there, and I'm going to call this Coefficient of Friction, because that's what this graph is going to allow me to find. Okay. So now that's done. Of course, feel free to pause this video at any time if you need to go back and relook at something. Now that I've got the other effects dealt with. Now what I want to do is I want to put in a trend line. So I'm going to double click on my graph and bring up my add chart element. And what I want to bring up is a trend line. These, as I said, should be pretty straight lines. So I'm going to click on linear, and that does bring up a linear graph. But I want to do a couple of other things with it. So I'm going to double click the line, and then I'm going to come over here to where it says trend line options. And the main thing that I want to do is I want it to show the equation. Okay, because the slope of that line, which is what this number here is, 0.1159, that slope is going to represent my coefficient of friction. Why does it represent my coefficient of friction? Because remember, when we find slope, we do y over x. And in this case, y over x would be the force of friction divided by mg, which, if we remember our formula, mu times the normal force here would be the weight. That would mean the force of friction divided by the weight gives me mu. Okay, so now that I've done that for my static, I now want to do the same thing for my kinetic. So I'm going to add a trend line. And then I'm going to display the equation. And I see the slope there is 0.0744. Okay? Now that I've done that, now I can deal with my legend table. And the first thing I want to do is I want to get rid of those extra little lines. There we have it. And that's my graph. If you have any questions, please send me an email. Okay. I then would just insert this right in my lab where I said for it to be. Okay. If you have any questions, please send me an email. Have a great day.